We are back on the National Book Podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. By the time you hear this on the podcast, it will be Tuesday, but I'm recording this on Monday night on a Substack Live. Always look forward to coming to a Substack Live. I don't have to have a bunch of people coordinated so that I can do it like I do with TikTok. I can just show up, start talking to a bunch of people, a bunch of good people with good points of view, questions, and comments. And it makes doing this hour on Substack Live so much easier. Got people coming in now, and there's lots of things to talk about. But I think the thing that most people are interested in at this point is the situation with Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, the Department of Defense. Jose says, hi, Boomer. Shelley says, hello. Hello to you folks. That's the story that everybody's talking about. And I'm not sure if everybody understands just how big a story this is and how serious it is at this point. Just to go over it quickly, of course, we know that Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, and the DOD has been bombing boats in the Caribbean. And the reason they've been bombing them is because they say that they are trafficking drugs. Now, the interesting thing is they have no evidence of it. Nobody's proved it. There is no such information that suggests it. And even if there was a thought that there were drug traffickers in those boats, this isn't the way you would do it. This is highly illegal in the way they do it. But they took it a step farther. There was one situation where Pete Hegseth instructed the military to bomb a boat. In that boat, there were 11 people. 2 of those people survived the blast. And when Pete Hegseth was asked about it, what do we do now? He said, kill them all. And then an admiral, by way of SEAL Team 6, went in and did just that. Now, that is what people will describe as a war crime. Now, some people say it can't be a war crime because there is no war, and that's a good point. That's probably true. Then it's just murder. I mean, there's no two ways about it. There's no explanation for it. Now, of course, when this first came out, we had Donald Trump saying, I didn't hear anything about it. I didn't know anything about it. Pete Hegseth said it's fake news. It's a hoax. It never happened. Well, then earlier today, Carolyn Levitt came out and acknowledged that it in fact happened, just as it has been reported, that they bombed the boat and then they went back with a second tap, as they say, and killed the 2 remaining survivors. She acknowledged that they broke the law, both international and domestic law. So now it's a matter of who they're going to blame for this. We know who's to blame for it ultimately. It's Donald Trump, but everybody's going to want to try to protect Donald Trump, of course. So Carolyn Levitt comes out and says, oh yeah, Pete Hegseth gave the authority to do it. They threw him under the bus. Donald Trump didn't know anything about it, but Pete Hegseth gave the authority. Then Pete Hegseth comes back and says, yeah, but the guy that followed through with the order was Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley. So now they throw him under the bus. But what's important to understand is everybody that's been involved in this, whether it be Pete Hegseth, the Admiral, the 6 members of SEAL Team 6, they're all culpable in this situation. They're all complicit. See, the thing about it is this Admiral has a problem. You know, we've been talking about, do you have to follow unlawful orders? And clearly, through the code of ethics, through the military, it specifically says you not only don't have to, you should not do it. And clearly, in this case, the Admiral, who obviously knows the code of conduct, obviously has been in the military for some years, knew that this was an unlawful order. Still, he went ahead and did it. He went ahead and did it. So he knew what he was doing, and he is culpable in this situation. So we know this actually happened. We know that it's a serious crime. We know that it's tantamount to murder. And now there's going to be an investigation. And it's not just the Democrats that are investigating this. It's going to be the Republicans too. There are Republicans that are angry. This apparently is the bridge too far after 10 years of bullshit. But this one, they're going to have a hard time um, diverting from. There is going to be evidence gathered. I don't think they'll have any problem gathering the evidence. It's too far down the road, and too many people on both sides are interested in seeing this. So this is going to be problematic. Everybody's waiting for the Epstein files to come out, and that's going to have a serious impact. But that doesn't happen till the 19th, if they ever get released. I'm not sure that they will. We'll talk more about that later. But while that's going on, we have this whole situation, this scandal, this crime, if you will. And there's going to be a lot of investigations, and there's going to be a lot of finger pointing. But the bottom line is our military killed two innocent people at least. Now, this will cause other investigations into the other bombings too, because we only know about this one specific situation that they feel is criminal. But we also know that bombing these boats in general is probably criminal too. So this opens this Pandora's box, and it's not going to be pleasant for Pete Hegseth. He'll probably get fired, and Donald Trump will think, well, then it's over. No, it's not. Then they'll fire the admiral, who just got a promotion recently got a promotion for killing those two people. So good job there. But it's going to be a mess. Donald Trump is going to take a toll. Donald Trump, we know, is involved in all of these egregious, cruel decisions. And if we can track it back to him, he's got some serious problems. Well, he's got serious problems anyway. So here's the one positive thing I can suggest of this. When this gets all stirred up and people start getting in trouble, like an admiral, like SEAL Team 6, like Pete Hegseth, about reacting and following through with an unlawful order, what do you think that's going to do to the military? You know, we had the six members of Congress that came out and said, you don't have to follow through with an unlawful order. Donald Trump and the Republicans got all upset about it. And then this happens. It's ironic. It's almost like they planned it that way. But after these people get run through the ringer, you know what that's going to do? That's going to cause every person in the military to be more discerning as to what's an unlawful order, because they're going to see their compatriots go through some shit, maybe go through trials, maybe get prosecuted and convicted. Whether it be Pete Hegseth, the Admiral, or SEAL Team 6, they're all culpable. So what that means is the people in the military, we've always been worried about, well, will the military ever push back against Donald Trump? Well, after this goes down, you can bet they will. They're going to see what happens to their fellow military personnel, and they're not going to want to put themselves in that situation. So what this does is it makes it weaker for Donald Trump to co-opt the military and make them do crazy things. They're going to think twice about doing that. So hopefully that's the good news with the situation. Got a bunch of people in here, and we got some comments and questions. I see Analytical Iowan, Eric is there. Indiana Republicans, for the most part, are now rebelling against Trump. Yeah. And this is about the redistricting. They really want to redistrict Indiana. It's maybe one or two seats. It's not a huge deal. But they're rebelling against him, because of this particular scandal that's going on now. And not to mention the one representative who got angry when Donald Trump referred to Tim Walz as the R word. And that gentleman just so happened to have a child with Down syndrome, and he took offense to it. And when he took offense to it, he said, "Yeah, I'm not going to vote with Donald Trump at this point." Stuart Cohen says, "No, all we need is Tennessee Republicans to do the same." Absolutely. And what he's talking about is a special election that's happening tomorrow. If you're on the live today, if you're listening to the podcast, Tuesday, special election in Tennessee. It is Afton Bain, the Democratic candidate, against some clown, some Trump humper named Van Epps. He's a bad dude. People wouldn't be thinking twice about this particular election if it were under normal circumstances. The fact of the matter is, Donald Trump won that district by 22 points. But if you look at the polling now, you see Van Epps with 48% and Afton Ben with 46%. I will tell you, if Afton Ben somehow wins that election, there's going to be a lot of Republicans with their fucking hair on fire. They lost 22, 24 points, and a Democrat wins. It thins out the margin in the House, and it's a red flag for anybody who's a Republican looking to try to win election in 2026. T. Butler says it was murder, plain and simple. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what it was. There is never a time when you kill combatants that can't fight back. They're trying to tell people that this was self-defense. Now, in real terms, it wasn't at all self-defense. But the loophole they're going to try to go through is, well, they were bringing drugs to America and they're attacking America with the drugs and we're defending America. Yeah, that's not going to work. Judges aren't going to buy that bullshit. They can try all they want, but it's not going to work. Spacer says, read the Geneva Convention. It was a war crime. James says, I have no sympathy for that admiral. I don't either. Because I know that he had a choice and he chose the wrong choice. So he is complicit in that regard. But I also know he's kind of a Trump humper himself. Remember when Donald Trump fired all those admirals and generals and such and put his sycophants in those places? He's one of them. So I don't care if he gets thrown under the bus. I don't care if he gets his ass kicked. Fucking deserves it. Jose says Bradley's going to be the scapegoat. Well, he's going to be. They're going to try to make him the scapegoat. I don't know that it'll work. We are not at war with Venezuela. It was murder, no question. Now, that doesn't mean they aren't going to try to put us into a war with Venezuela. They won't get it through Congress, but what does Donald Trump care? Eric says he sure seems to never know or hear about anything. The most powerful person in the country, he never knows about anything, and he'll tell you he's the smartest person in the room, yet he never knows anything. Literally, he never knows anything. When Tim Walz, after being insulted by Donald Trump, said, I'd like to see the results from the MRI. Somebody in the press asked Donald Trump about that and said, so what part of your body did they use the MRI on? And once again, he said, I don't know. It was just an MRI. And he said, but it wasn't my brain because I took a cognitive test and I'm perfect. Just like my perfect phone call. Fuck you. You're losing it, buddy. Just look at your face. It's drooping all over the fucking place. It looks like you're fucking melting, and you can't put two words together, let alone a sentence. But then somebody says, would you release the MRI files? And he said, yeah, we'll release it. I don't care. Go ahead and release it. Then later, Carolyn Levitt comes out and says, yeah, we have the results on a MRI. No big deal. It was just preventative. Preventative? They never use an MRI for preventative measures. The only reason they use an MRI is if there's something going on and they need to take a look at it. Except in the case with Donald Trump, if they use the MRI on his head, they clearly would have used the MRI on his head and found out nothing is going on, literally nothing. T. Butler, Trump will pardon him. Yeah, that's a distinct possibility. He could do that. That's why I would suggest the courts maybe not indict him till after Donald Trump is gone. Just wait. Um, Will says Trump can't pardon Whiskey Pete. Well, if he's convicted of a crime, a federal crime, he can. However, if Whiskey Pete is impeached, ain't nothing Donald Trump can do about that. There is no appeals for that. Trump can't keep everything juggled. No, and this is exactly what happens with narcissists. They juggle and manage things their whole life, you know, failures, stupid comments. But eventually it gets to the point where it's just too much. It's insurmountable. It's overwhelming. And then you throw into the fact that Donald Trump is in cognitive decline. Yeah, he won't be able to juggle everything. He's already at that point where he's kind of flailing, just saying anything and everything. So it's just a matter of time. I mean, that's one thing we can say. As messy as it's going to be over the next few months, we can at least rest assured that Donald Trump's time with us is probably limited, whether it be for legal reasons, whether it be for political reasons, or whether it be for the fact that he chokes on a Big Mac and shits himself to death. Any one of those things are possible. Will says, and the military is not happy with Whiskey Pete. Well, I don't think they've liked him from the beginning, but this certainly has got to raise the hackles on some of the people in the military, certainly. Republicans are turning on Trump and Hegseth. Yeah, they are. I mean, even when it came down to releasing the Epstein files, the fact that every Republican except one voted to release the files showed that they were willing to push up against Donald Trump. And that's kind of big news. Everybody would always fall in line and help or vote for Donald Trump's agenda because they were terrified of him. What this showed was these people are more terrified of their constituents than they are of Donald Trump. And that's where narcissists and bullies fail. When people stop being afraid of them, the media is starting to stop to be afraid of him. I'm not saying you trust the media any more than you used to, but there always comes a point with these people. They love to build them up and love to build them up, but they love even more tearing the motherfuckers down. And we're about at that stage now where people are going to take great joy, get a great number of views and support by tearing Donald Trump down. And when that turn happens, it's over. It'll come down like a fucking avalanche. The entire operation is criminal. No evidence. Yeah, you're right. From the bombing of the boats to the killing of the survivors, it's all criminal. Spacer says nothing was going Trump's way domestically, so he thought he would score some wins on foreign policy. Trump will fail at everything he does. Well, the fact of the matter is he's always failed at everything he does, even when he was supposedly the successful businessman. 6 bankruptcies, casino failures. Yeah, that's all he does is fail. Yes, he can pardon him because unfortunately murder is pardonable offense unless he drops dead beforehand. Yeah, that's the other thing. If there is a trial, depends on how long it goes. Will Donald Trump still be around toward the end of the trial or prior to the trial? You know, a lot of times these things take a year or two to happen. And if it takes a year or two to happen, anything could happen to Donald Trump. And I would suggest that J.D. Vance probably wouldn't pardon Hegseth. He's going to want to build support, and that is just not going to offer any support. But like Will says, if Hegseth is impeached, there's nothing Donald Trump can do about it. So we'll see what happens. I'm seeing here in Ohio, I think Ohio could be the next Georgia, a surprise flip. And Spacer, I assume you're talking about the senator's race and maybe get a blue senator in there. I don't know too much about Ohio. I know it's been red. I know you got some dumb fucks in leadership, Jim Jordan being one. But I would hope that people would be starting to grasp what's going on and maybe suffering through the perils that Donald Trump has created, and maybe they will switch. I got my fingers crossed on that one. You think his regime will engage in a war in Venezuela, or will the Congress finally push back? I would hope Congress would push back. I don't know that we're going to see a war there because Donald Trump is big on threats and oftentimes he doesn't have much substance. I think the people around him are going to explain how badly this is going to do for him if he does it. I mean, it's certainly possible. There's all kinds of things that have happened with Donald Trump as president, and I've said, that couldn't happen, and it does because Congress hasn't pushed back. Is Congress far enough along to push back? Do they have the courage to push back? Well, more so than they ever have. Whether it's enough, I don't know. Eric says Trump can't pardon for impeachment because there's only political penalty for impeachment, no criminal penalties like prison. And I don't know that he'll get to the point where he's getting impeached. Donald Trump will want to blame somebody, and he'll probably fire Pete Hegseth. Then we need to look at the judicial aspect of the things he's done. And I would just delay that as long as I could until Donald Trump is no more. Will says, I don't trust Tennessee. Well, I get that. I don't necessarily trust him either. I mean, I have high hopes for Afton Bain. I hope she wins. Not only because we want to get the extra representative in the House of Representatives, but I want to see the Republicans losing their shit because they will if Afton Bain wins. What would be even funnier if she won like 5 or 10 points, by 5 or 10 points. That would drive them fucking nuts. When people have to have cover your ass as his or her first priority, that type of happenstance moves into areas of low morale in the ranks. Yeah. And when all you're doing is covering your ass, that means you're very close to failure. Will says the South Park episode was very accurate. I didn't get a chance to see it. I don't watch a lot of South Park. I never got into it. Maybe I should have, but I haven't. Wasn't even a war crime since we are at war. It is murder. Yeah, that's the argument that some people say it wasn't a war crime. I don't know what defines a war crime. You have to be in war. Is what Donald Trump tantamount to war? I don't. What he's doing is that tantamount to war? I don't know. The fucking thing is, it's wrong. And as you said, the bottom line, at the very least, it's fucking murder. There's no other way to explain it. All right, moving on. But Trump can pardon Kager, can't he? He can, as long as he's in office, he can pardon Hegseth if he's convicted of a crime, a federal crime. If he's convicted of a federal crime, he could. And he might, given the circumstances. But it depends on when that court case takes place. If it's after Donald Trump is out of office, then it's an entirely different situation. To be perfectly honest with you, they could indict and prosecute the admiral too. Theoretically, they could prosecute the people in SEAL Team 6 that carried this out because they all took an order that was unlawful and they followed through with it. So they're all in a situation where they could be complicit. Will says everyone in the chain of command will pay the price, and Will has often said there is going to be a reckoning, and I'm starting to see it now. If you understand how Pete Hegseth went about this whole bombing boats in the Caribbean, he went to the JAG officers, and they said, "No, that's fucking crazy. You can't do that." So then he went around them and went to Pam Bondi. He said, "Pam, what do you think? You're the Attorney General." She goes, "Sounds cool to me." And that's why he continued forward and then told the admiral, who then in turn told the SEAL Team 6 folks. So Pam Bondi has a little bit of complicity in this situation. Um, Justification for war with Venezuela is oil. That's possible. But who knows why Donald Trump does fucking anything. You know, he says he's bombing these boats because he wants to stop drug trafficking. And he's terrified of drug trafficking coming from Venezuela in 20-foot boats and coming up all the way to America. That makes no fucking sense. But while he's concerned about drug trafficking, he's now in the process of pardoning um, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who's the former president of Honduras, who is a huge drug trafficker who's currently in a federal prison in the United States. So, how much does Donald Trump really care about drugs? He cares about image, perception, making noise, creating chaos. Spacer says Ohio is a mess, and Amy Acton, the Democratic candidate for governor, is talking like Mamdani. Our state house needs to be cleaned out after years of Republican rule. Yeah, no shit. It's a mess there. It's a lot like Texas in that regard. Um, T. Butler says, yeah, it's all about oil. Yeah, it could be. It could be about oil. It could be other shit too. It doesn't really matter what it's about. The fact that he's even thinking about attacking Venezuela is ridiculous for any reason. All right. I agree with Will. It's either win or lose. It's either do or do not. There is no try. We need to view this race life and death and all other races going forward. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. We can't fall short at all in any race. Eric says, I could be wrong, but I think the military could recall Hegseth and court martial him. Well, that's what they want to do to Mark Kelly. So, yeah, I would presume they could do that. Who would be in charge of the DOD at that point? I don't know if they would have a stomach for that or if Donald Trump would say, don't do that. But they certainly could. If they can try to recall Mark Kelly, they certainly could recall Pete Hegseth. Do you have any thoughts about Patel possibly being fired? Well, I've been hearing some inside talk that there's a lot of terrified fucks in the FBI because Patel is so far over his head. Everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Every time you look at Kash Patel, he looks terrified. His bug eyes and the inability to answer a question. I think Patel is going to be fired ultimately. I do, because not only is he Donald Trump's sycophant, but he's also incredibly incompetent at what he's doing. And the rank and file in the FBI are not happy and they're worried and they're concerned and everybody's bouncing around not knowing what's going on. And frankly, if we have an FBI that isn't working properly, we have a problem. Janice says, Bondi and Hegseth, Dumb and Dumber. Yeah, you're right on there. We can't forget about Pam Bondi because she is complicit in a lot of this shit. Even going back to the Epstein files. I don't know if you know this, but she's the one in the DOJ that's been holding back these Epstein files. But it goes back even farther for her. Back when Jeffrey Epstein was convicted, and Alex Acosta, who at one point was Donald Trump's labor secretary, cut him a sweetheart deal where he was in jail for 12 hours a day and out of jail for 12 hours a day for being the most prolific pedophile in American history. At that time, there was one other person that would have had to dip into this whole situation, and that would have been the Florida Attorney General. And that Florida Attorney General happened to be Pam Bondi. So she knows more about this shit than she lets on. Let's see here. We are in the stage of paranoia. If Republicans in Congress turn against him, you maybe start seeing cabinet members that way. Stalin at the end of rule. Oh, yeah. Donald Trump doesn't want to go down alone. I think he said as much. If he's going down, he's going to take everybody with him. He expects everybody to protect him, to stand with him no matter what. There's going to come a point when all of these people just can't do that. We're already seeing people peeling off. There's still plenty that stick by them, but yeah, it's going to get ugly pretty quickly here. The Chinese have a lot of interest in Venezuela. A war with Venezuela can bring on other fights. Is Trump considering that? You're asking me if Trump is considering something past the end of his nose? Of course he's not considering that. He probably thinks China's terrified of us when that's not quite the case. Spacer says he doesn't consider anything. I think that's a fair assumption. He doesn't consider anything. If DJT isn't pardoning drug traffickers, then he's giving them and their families residency in the U.S. The question would be, does the traffickers take up their own original occupation once they're settled? And I know what you're talking about there. This happened earlier in Donald Trump's second term. You remember El Chapo. El Chapo was the huge leader of the drug cartel in Mexico. He's no longer viable, but Donald Trump openly welcomed all of El Chapo's family into this country, presumably illegal aliens, but he laid out the red carpet for them. Why do you suppose he did that? What would El Chapo have that would interest Donald Trump enough to give his whole family asylum? I bet you they got a lot of money. And I bet you this cost these people millions upon millions, and they were happy to send it to Donald Trump in order to get this special treatment. Remember, Donald Trump is transactional. He doesn't do anything unless he's getting paid for it. We know there was a time when he was selling pardons for $2 million a pop. So I'm thinking that El Chapo and his family paid Donald Trump a bunch of money. He said, sure, come on in. I'm the fucking president. You can do whatever you want because I'm the king. Trump has the impulse control of a 4-year-old. This man is the worst possible example of a human being. He has the nuclear codes, and now they get nervous and break ranks. All of them need to go. I agree. I have a 5-year-old granddaughter, and I guarantee you, I mean, 5-year-olds are 5-year-olds. They do some goofy shit. I have to sit down and talk to her now and again. But I think she has better impulse control than Donald Trump. She at least knows the difference between right and wrong, and she also doesn't want to do anything wrong. Donald Trump is totally the opposite. China is able to run roughshod due to Trump. The Philippines might appoint a pro-China president, and Taiwan is left defenseless. He destroyed the Pacific wall of allied nations that was meant to contain China, the one Biden built. Yeah, well, Donald Trump is out to destroy anything Biden or Obama did. That's why he's going so hard against the ACA. Leslie Hyatt says criminally transactional. Absolutely. Sloan says, do you think the Trump regime is behind the shooting of the 2 National Guard members? That's a good question. And if I was to say yes under normal conditions, you'd say that's crazy conspiracy stuff. That's the stuff that Joe Rogan's and people would be talking about. But you have to wonder, right? With what we know of Donald Trump, nothing is unheard of. Nothing is impossible. Do I think he could be? Definitely. I think he could be. I don't think he's opposed to a little collateral damage in order to distract attention or to maybe try to start some criminality in the streets, some violence in the streets. I hate to say it. I don't know for sure. I would hope that's not the case, But do I think Donald Trump maybe was involved in that situation, in the Charlie Kirk situation, and in his own assassination attempt? Best I can do is I can only say, as far as I know and what I've seen in the past, distinctly possible. It's crazy to say that, but I think it's possible. I don't know if it's true, but I think it's possible. Let's see here. Lots of weaker links around DJT are retiring and cutting ties now before the ship sinks. And I think it's funny, these people have followed this guy for 10 years, stood by him through all the crimes and corruption, and they think if they quit now, they're off the hook. They may want to look back to the Watergate days and those people that stood with Richard Nixon. Just quitting isn't going to save them. If there's a flow of money from drug kingpins to Trump, how are they getting it to him? The meme coin is another way to tie the payment to a pardon. That would be an impeachable offense. Well, let's be honest. He's been in there, 10 and a half, 11 months? There's been multiple impeachable offenses. Multiple. He could be impeached today and be convicted in the Senate with no problem if we had decent people in the Senate and in the House. We might be getting more people with a stomach for doing something like that, but we don't know for sure. All this cruelty that is happening isn't all of Trump's idea. Trump is being coerced by Stephen Miller. Trump can't even spell Venezuela. Yeah, no, I think you make a good point there, and I have to agree with you wholeheartedly. Donald Trump is not capable of individual thought. He's not capable of a strategy. He's got people around him like Stephen Miller who are guiding him down the way. They're lying to him, telling him he's doing a great job, that the polls are great, that the prices are down. And that's all Donald Trump knows. He's got yes men around him, but they understand if they treat him like this, they can encourage him to do their bidding. And that's likely what's happening. Much of the cruelty that you see in this country now by way of our government and by way of our presidential administration is largely due to, I believe, Stephen Miller. Donald Trump's not smart enough to come up with some of the things they've come up with, even though they're dumb. He's too stupid to even do that. I think that's what he was hoping for, says Sloan. T. Butler says, I wouldn't put it past him. Years ago, I wouldn't have said that. Also, Charlie Kirk. What's Ed's new predicted date? Well, he predicted that Donald Trump would take a dirt nap before or on Thanksgiving Day. Clearly, that did not happen. Ed was wrong. And, we all can be wrong. Is it a prediction? Is it wishful thinking? Who the fuck knows? I haven't really talked to Ed since Thanksgiving. I was supposed to get together with him on Friday, but then I had my granddaughter, and that wasn't going to work. So hopefully I'll talk to him this Thursday for a Friday show, and we'll see what he has to say about it at that point. But I warned him. I said, dude, you said that, and people are marking it down and checking it fucking twice. I think Trump will be done with his term between March to May of next year when Congress is out on the campaign trail and they have to break with Trump. They may have to do it like Tom Suozzi did with Biden. That's possible. I keep hearing people saying March or April, and then they push it back, and then I want it fucking tomorrow, okay? I want to have to do an addendum to this podcast because the world changed and Donald Trump choked on a Big Mac and then croaked. That's what I want. He said recently that low gas prices were coming soon. Sorry, I thought he said they were already here. I thought he said day one. Yeah, gas prices haven't been lowered at all. They've gone up. I think I'm paying a difference of 35 to 40%. Oh, 35 to 40 cents per gallon more than I was prior to Donald Trump's fucking around with it. It could be believable if CIA or DJT reassured the shooter no deportation if he carried out the task of shooting a uniformed service personnel. Yeah, I don't if he was involved, if the Trump administration was involved, I don't know how they would pull it off because clearly the shooter had to be sacrificed, either by death or by a jail term. But the funny thing about it is we hear a lot of shit about a lot of people, and Donald Trump complains about Democrats that are criminal. What do you know about the shooter that took a shot at Donald Trump? Didn't hit him. No way he actually hit him because if he did with an AR-15 bullet, it would have ripped his ear off. So he never got hit. It was fake. I don't care what anybody says. Prove me wrong on that shit. What do we know about the shooter of Charlie Kirk? Not much. What do we know about the shooter of these two National Guard members? We don't know much. He always talks about transparency. How come it's not transparent? That just seems weird, and that's one of the reasons I kind of think there might be something more that we don't know about those situations. Spacer says also every time the camera in South Park pans away from Pam Bondi and back to her, there's a new streak of incompetent people. Uh, Wait a minute. New streak of shit on her nose. Yeah. Yeah. She's a dumb woman. She has no idea what kind of trouble she's in when this is over with. I've said before, uh, Richard Nixon's attorney general, John Mitchell, ended up going to jail for a lot less than what Pam Bondi is doing. And the biggest thing she should be concerned about is this Epstein Files cover up. She is part of a fucking cover up. I don't care what anybody says. She says, I have it on my desk. Oh, that there isn't anything there. It's got nothing in it. Donald Trump isn't in the files. We get the emails. Donald Trump's all over those emails. It's all a lie. It's all a cover up. And she will pay a price for it ultimately in that reckoning that Will talks about. Trump is extremely illiterate. That's why he surrounds himself with incompetent people. Yeah, so he can speak on their level. Where's the health plan? Last term, yeah, Donald Trump has been talking about a health care program since 2015, and we have yet to see one. Now, he is talking about one now where he would give the money directly to the people, and then the people could buy their own health insurance, which is stupid. You're not going to give it to the health insurance companies, so you're going to give it to the people who then in turn have to give it to the health care companies, the insurance companies. Yeah, that's brilliant move. See, he thinks that people will side with him because, oh, Donald Trump's going to give us free money. No, he's going to make healthcare more expensive if he does that because there is no leverage at that point. If everybody's buying their individual healthcare, there is no leverage for anything. You're going to get stuck with shitty coverage and it's going to be expensive. And there's no way they'll give you enough to cover the expense of your healthcare. Donald Trump hadn't thought that out too well. It's just another time where Donald Trump just spews bullshit that happens in his head. I really hope Trump's kicked out before he dies. I want to see Trump and the Republicans fight on the already sinking ship. Yeah. What I would like to see is him shamed, embarrassed, made out to be a pariah, and then let him keel over and die. I need to see him suffer through some embarrassment. What do you know about the Butler shooter? Miraculous ear healing. There's nothing we know about the shooter there. We know he's dead. We know that somebody else in the crowd was dead. We know that Donald Trump said he got his ear nicked and there was some blood or something that resembled blood on the side of his face. And I'm not, you know, um, expert with guns and ammunition, but I do know from people I've talked to that if you're shot with an AR-15, a high-velocity bullet, even from that distance, and it nicks your ear, first of all, you're gonna go down, probably not get up, just by virtue of the speed and the power of that bullet. Then it's probably going to rip your ear off, even if it just nicked it. That's what's gonna happen. You're not gonna stand up, raise your hand to the sky and say, "Fight, fight, fight," and have nothing wrong with your ear. That's just not possible. That's there's no way that's possible. Trump isn't just dumb, he's lazy too. All he cares about is attention, making money, and staying out of jail while he is sleeping half the day away to make up for truthing nasty messages all night. Miller and Vaught are running the country into the ground. Can't disagree with you there. Donald Trump is sleeping most of the time. He's almost 80 years old. He's not in good health. It's not unusual to see him lack energy at this point. James says that Butler incident was staged, and the fact that the Secret Service allowed them to stand and pose for photographs proves it. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, any Secret Service agent worth their salt would have him covered up and moved to that car as quickly as possible. They wouldn't allow the person, whether it be the president or anybody else, a chance for a fucking photo op. Just doesn't happen. All right. Everyone can tell you John Hinckley's name. I couldn't tell you if you held me a gunpoint what the guy's name was that supposedly shot Trump. I agree. Can you name the guy who shot Charlie Kirk? You can't. The only reason you can name the guy that shot the National Guard members is because it happened a few days ago. But you're absolutely right. All of a sudden, it just goes dark as far as information about these people. And that is suspicious. That's very suspicious. He's done nothing domestically for us. Well, Sloan, that's correct. He hasn't done anything for us, but he's done a fuckload to us. That's the problem. We should do the shame ritual. I think I know where you're going with this, like in Game of Thrones for the members of the administration. I think that would be good. Well, what was it? Have them walk through the crowd where everybody's saying shame, 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 and maybe they're naked on top of it. That would, well, I wouldn't want to watch it, but I'd love to hear about it. Is Schumer in hiding? We need Senate Minority Leader. Yeah, I don't know. Schumer's one of those guys that you don't see for periods of time when there's trouble. I think what the Democrats need to do to change the perception of the Democrats, everybody thinks the Democrats are weak, and they're right about that. You want to change the perception quickly, and I would think they do with an election coming up. Get rid of Schumer, get rid of Hakeem Jeffries, get rid of Nancy Pelosi, bring in some people that would be willing to fight, a Jasmine Crockett or Jamie Rashkin or somebody like that. That would change the attitude about the Democratic Party and certainly would help in the upcoming election. All right. Let's see here. Trump ordered flags flown half-mast for Kirk, but not the National Guard member. Isn't that ironic? The guy who stands with the military. I didn't know that. I know he did it for Charlie Kirk. And who gives a fuck about Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk was a joke before he became popular. The only reason he became popular is because some billionaire saw he had a prospect of being a good mouthpiece for the radical right. They funded him and made him bigger. And then all of a sudden, all out of the blue, he marries this Erica, who has quite a history, too, of being involved in shit, bad shit, and being connected with Donald Trump. It all seems to be kind of a sham, you know? All seems to have been put together ahead of time. Have you heard anything about all of the countries other than Russia and China meeting to organize to stop Trump from getting his hands on frozen Russian money? by dumping all the USA bonds, etc., and crashing the dollar? I hadn't heard about that, but I hadn't thought about it at all. But you make a good point. People have said if you want to fund Ukraine, unfreeze the money and give it to Ukraine because there's hundreds of billions of dollars sitting there that is Russia's that's frozen. I hadn't considered the prospect that Donald Trump might want to dip his hand in the well and take it before it even got to the Ukraine folks. Hmm. Yeah, I think people around the world, countries around the world, are looking at ways to put pressure on Donald Trump. I don't know. He's so fucking delusional. I don't know if you would be able to grasp it, but I would hope they're trying to do something to avoid that. I'd not even considered that, but you make a good point. Wait until the midterm season fully starts up. The new young candidates for Congress will be out talking to the people. Schumer and Jeffries will be at fancy fundraising galas. Yeah. I was just hearing Afton Bain, the candidate, Democratic candidate in the Tennessee seat. She was campaigning. She was knocking doors and doing all that stuff. And she said, I'm sitting here knocking doors and asking for your votes and such. And her opponent, Van Epps, is sitting in this big mansion holding some a meeting with high level people. I mean, we need to consider who the true enemy is here. The Republicans certainly, but it's the wealthy folks in this country that control everything. And until we start fighting against them, we can't win this thing. I left this one on Eric's comments in New Hampshire, the Senate race to replace Shaheen, one of the covers during the shutdown. Apparently, it is um, tight because Republicans are relying on name recognition. Former Governor Chris Sununu, brothers John Sununu, is running for the seat. Yeah. Well, we know how that worked for J.D. Vance's brother in Ohio. Didn't work out too well, did it? I think there's enough people that are independents or people more center in the Republican Party are getting tired of the Republican Party at this point. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. Are they going to vote Democrat? I find that hard to believe, but I have a feeling they just might not vote at all, which would be just as good if they don't. If they don't vote, then that's good news for the Democrats. But I'm really anxious to see this election in Tennessee. It's tomorrow, unless you're listening to the podcast, then it's today. I'm going to be watching this one very closely on high hopes for Afton Bain, the Democrat. But as Will pointed out, don't trust Tennessee. Don't trust any red state for that matter. You don't know what the fuck they're going to do. We don't know what kind of bullshit games they might be playing. So we got to be ready for that. Um, did did Vance spend Thanksgiving with Erica, or was he on the sofa? Well, I think he had a menage a trois, and he had Erica on the sofa. I think that's the way it went. And I think Usha was off planning her divorce. Democrats need to realize that generic ballots don't translate to votes. The mass media is still pushing that Democrats still have an uphill battle. And I'm sure that's true. I mean, I don't count on anything when it comes to elections anymore. I was absolutely certain all the facts pointed to Kamala Harris winning, and she did. I don't even know how to explain that other than Democrats just sat on their ass and didn't come out. But if I'm looking at facts and I'm looking at polls and I'm looking at such and such, it's conceivable Afton Bain doesn't win this and the Republicans prevail in Tennessee. That's certainly possible. But I will tell you this, if it's close and she loses, that's still going to be a red flag for Republicans. Donald Trump won that district by 22 points. And if she loses by, say, 2 or 3 points, they should be looking hard at themselves because this is a bright red state, bright red district. And the fact that they only won by 2 points, that's a scary situation for them. Uh, oh, okay. Spacer's saying he was talking about the midterms. Yeah, a lot of people are feeling it's a foregone conclusion that the Democrats will take the House, certainly, and maybe the Senate. And he's saying, don't get too cocky yet. We may have an uphill battle. And you may be right. But I will tell you this, whatever's going on with Donald Trump that's pissing off people in the polls is only going to get worse between now and 2026. So I think the odds are with the Democrats, certainly in the House. Hell, the Democrats may take control of the House before the 2026 elections with possible resignations. And a lot of people are thinking if Afton Ben does win this um, Tennessee race, that there might be a lot of people coming out and resigning. Now, somebody like Troy Nehls in Texas, he's retiring, but he's going to run out his term. So that doesn't help much. It's the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene that say, fuck it, I'm getting out while the getting's good. And that would be the smart thing to do. May not help them, but they're better off than the people that stand with Donald Trump to the very end. Those fuckers are going to go off the cliff with Donald Trump. If she wins, Trump can't use the mandate point anymore. We can. Um, yeah, Donald Trump never had a mandate. He won by 1.5, maybe 2%. That's not a mandate at all. He didn't even get 50% of the votes in this country. Remember the message, run these races like there were 10 points behind Bernie Sanders. Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. I mean, it's like anytime you're dealing with a bully, if you get the upper hand and you knock him on his ass, you better make sure you keep him there, that he's down permanently, because as soon as you let up, they'll be all up in your shit again. So you're absolutely right. We need to push hard and keep pushing. We win the Tennessee thing. That's awesome. Let's take that motivation and keep running it up their ass because that's what it's going to take. It's still a year from the midterms. Primaries are coming up, but the midterms are a year away, and we need to keep the pressure on. We need Donald Trump to continue to fail, and I think that's a given, but we also need to keep ramming it down their fucking throats. Otherwise, we could find ourselves short again. All right. I watched A Christmas Story. That's what happened, LOL. There's a story out there that European leaders worried about Trump's connections to Russia are talking about threatening to dump the billions of dollars in U.S. debt that hold if he betrays Ukraine. It is serious because if they did that, the whole economy would crash. A lot of people don't realize the power of foreign countries have on our debt. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, if Japan alone cashed out our bonds, we'd be in fucking trouble. If they all did it, we'd be destroyed economically. Now, the only thing you can hope for is that there are people around him that are smart enough to understand that and have influence over him. Because Donald Trump is a delusional motherfucker. He is delusional. And what's he always do? He doubles down, triples down, and he always fails. So if a president can fuck up the bond market by having other countries liquidate, Donald Trump's the motherfucker that can do it. Guarantee you. Do you find it interesting that talk of Trump's replacement is being talked about now? Doesn't that usually happen after the midterm elections? Yeah. I've often said, everybody says Gavin Newsom's going to be the candidate. And I say, just, hold on a second. Generally, when somebody emerges early on in a presidential race, they don't end up being the one. they don't end up being the candidate. Somebody else will emerge after the midterms. I think after the midterms, we can get more serious about that. Republicans should look at replacing that motherfucker right now, though. Janice Stevens says that Roseanne, you and I must be watching the same Substack. Yeah. There's Bren. Bren's always popping in from time to time. Thank you, Bren. I hate how some people are relying on betting markets for the Democratic nominee also. Um, I'll just say this right now. We don't know who the Democratic nominee is. It's going to depend on what's going on in this country and in the world, what's happened to Donald Trump, what's happened to the Republicans. All that will have play some factors in what's going on. Um, if the election were tomorrow, it would be Gavin Newsom probably. But if you notice, you haven't heard much from him lately. He had that period of time where he was shaming Donald Trump, but you haven't heard much lately. Other people will emerge. There'll be other people that want it and don't have a chance. People like Cory Booker. I don't think he has a chance in hell. He's got too many skeletons, and he's done too many stupid fucking things. The Republicans are talking about Vance or Rubio replacing Trump. I'm sure that's not going over well. Yeah, probably not. Um, the Dems have to get their shit together. They do. They need to get rid of the weak fucking leadership and get good leaders in, and then we can set a different tone and hopefully get people to understand that the Democrats can fight. There are people in the Democratic Party that will fight. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Spacer says, I think it will be someone we don't expect. Yeah, I do too. I think it will be somebody we don't expect. I mean, think about it. When Donald Trump started running for president, nobody took him seriously. Nobody thought he had a chance. Everybody was placing their bets on Jeb Bush, and we know how that worked out, right? Donald Trump ended up being the candidate and winning the presidential election. And I think we should take note of how Donald Trump won. We're dealing with a different crowd of people. Not as much the boomers anymore, as the millennials and Gen Zs will be the majority of people voting by 2028. Got to kind of build a brand, somebody they can get behind, somebody who is going to fight for them. We got to have somebody with that personality and that ability, and those are the people that are going to be, or that person is going to be the candidate, and we don't know who it is. Spacer says Ken Martin has been a disappointment. We need to take over the National Party also. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Ken Martin used to be head of the Democratic Farmer Labor here in Minnesota. And when he was brought in to run the party, he had a lot of possibilities. I think people thought he would be tougher. I don't get that impression at all. I don't think he's done shit. What do you think about Eric's comment about how there is rumors of Bush running in the 2028 Republican Party? A Bush running in the 2028 Republican Party. Well, I think it's distinctly possible. You know, as I've said, if Donald Trump goes down in flames between now and 2028 or now and 2026, they're going to have an opportunity to try to balance the Republican Party, try to make it normal again so they can garner some votes. They might bring a Bush in. I don't know that that's going to help them. I don't know of a Bush yet that is popular enough to catch people's attention. There's the governor from Georgia who might be a possibility. There's very few Republicans that can come in and be popular and actually win that election, and there are no candidates that can take over for Trump with regards to the cult, and that's going to be a problem. That's going to dismantle the MAGA party. Sloan says Mark Kelly for president. I don't think that's a bad idea. Mark Kelly's a solid candidate. And again, nobody's ever talked to him about something like that. But as time goes on, these military issues and who he is, he could be a viable candidate. Absolutely. They may have to start talking about moving more to the left. Well, I think they have to do that. Not so much to the left, but more to the center. That's what they'll have to do. That's what they will do if they're trying to straighten things out after Donald Trump has created the fucking mess that he's created. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Tell you what, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast and the Substack Live. I want to thank you all for joining me, participating. It's so, so important that you do. Makes this so much more interesting, not only for you, but for fucking me too. So I hope you have a great night, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.